So, welcome everybody to this special group called Embody Your Light, part of Module 4 in the Out of Egypt training. And I hope you guys have all gone through the module this week. You've read through the PDF and you've maybe we can close this one out. Read through the PDF and you have been introduced to some of the subject matter that we're going over, which is the Egyptian cosmological understanding of the body and how embodiment of our divinity actually works on that mystical level and also on a practical level. So this is really, I think one of the ultimate kind of tantras is the unification of our higher self and our unique divine soul essence, and then even beyond that, our unique God essence, our divinity, our ultimate God essence into our human form, into our DNA, into our cells. The Egyptians were definitely had a component of their culture, which was around this, this living God, living goddess, and how do we alchemize, from the base kind of unconscious state of being human, how do we alchemize into our divine embodiment? And on this path, like on the priest and the priestess path, I really feel like, in ancient times we had these huge temples built where we did a lot of the rituals, a lot of the ceremonies. And in this day and age, I feel so deeply, especially when it comes to, the divine feminine, it's the body is kind of our first experience of the temple and learning to tend the temple of your body. And there's nobody that I can think of, honestly and truly, who would be a more amazing people to talk to than these two people right here about this subject. So I want to introduce my friends, Ahaumna AhMaya and Alex Tarris, to you guys. I'm just gonna flip the camera over here. Ahaumna is a technician of the sacred. She is a metaphysical wisdom keeper and a transformational healer and guide and coach to people all around the world. She's led retreats. She leads retreats all around the world, but when we met, you had just come back from Egypt recently, and you were in the temple of Hathor in Dendera, and if I have permission to share about what you showed me. Okay. When I met Ahaumna, she showed me this video of a cell phone video she'd taken inside the temple of the temple of Hathor in Dendera. And Hathor is manifesting basically in this 20-foot column of light, on her cell phone video. And I was like, oh my gosh, we found each other. I was like, yes. So yeah, that was an immediate bond there. And I was also just so impressed that, guys, I have to tell you, Ahaumna is one of the most courageous souls I really met, in terms of how she walks her spiritual path. And I couldn't even believe you were taking women to Egypt and figuring out how to pay off the guards to meditate in the temples, and Hathor's appearing there. And you can get arrested, literally. You can get arrested for doing sacred work, and especially as a woman in Egypt. So I just really was like, this. She really is so badass and is so committed to her like divinity and her mission and her spiritual path. And I know you've gone through so much with your body in this life, and it's been a really big, in some ways a challenge, and then also something that has, I think you bring through things with your body that I've never even heard of before because of that. So immediately when I met you, I was like, this is like, I've never seen anybody doing this type of deep work with their body before, as far as like embodying light. And then you met your partner, Alex. I don't know, how long have you guys been together?
Almost 2 years.
2 years. And then I met you, Alex, and I was like, oh, these two are definitely meant to be together. So this is Alex Tarris, and Alex is well, you are a lot of things that I mean, one of the main things with you is I'm always like, translation, please. I don't quite know how to describe you fully, but he is a curator of healing technologies and a guide to others who, as they're healing their body, you have access to all of the latest technologies, machines, saunas, light healing technologies, hydrogen therapy.
Everything.
Anything you can think of. Alex, you review healing technologies. You have a website that does that, and you guide people in protocols for actually healing themselves and working with energy medicine and integration of light. So, amongst other things. Yeah. Yeah.
Good summation.
Yeah. Because you also do you have some really incredible wisdom around the earth and the energy body of the earth, actually. Because it's almost like you do this with people's bodies, but you're also really into the kind of the dynamics of the grid here on Earth, on Gaia, and even I don't even know how to describe it. It's almost like Gaia it's just one level of whatever you're working with on that level with the Earths.
Yep.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring them on because they have so much amazing medicine to share. So thank you guys for being here so much. And I guess the first question that I would have, that I would ask you is there's so many people that are experiencing, like me. Oh, that's the other thing I want to say is these two have been you guys have been my saving grace this last year when I started going through all the health crises that I've been going through. So there's a lot of people that are developing increased sensitivities to environmental, well, sometimes they don't even know why, but they're just developing health symptoms. They're developing, weird symptoms that are, sometimes can happen to you as you start developing spiritually. How do you relate to the process of basically awakening spiritually or having a transformation of consciousness on an energetic level or on a spiritual level, and how that can change the needs of the physical body?
Yeah, definitely. I guess I'll start, and then Alex usually elaborates immensely on everything that I bring through. That being said, as we are bringing in more frequency into our body, which is essentially what our spiritual development is, it's just bringing in more frequency. And that frequency, if we think about it like the sun, right? The sun is light, so we're bringing in more frequency into our body. And it's like, imagine you've been living in a cave your entire life and you've never seen the sun a day in your life. And you've lived in this cave for 40 years, and all of a sudden the cave doors open and you're able to go out into the desert, right? Or into an area with so much sun, your body, first and foremost, it's never seen the sun before. Your melatonin in your skin would be like, what's happening? Like, it would have to jump. All your chemical responses would have to shift into a new gear that they've never experienced before to hold and take in that light. So as we're going through our spiritual journey, it's essentially like that. It's like living in a cave and then stepping out into the sun for the first time ever. Your body has to change in order to hold that light that's coming through. So as we like start to bring in more currency, all of the tar, we'll call it, all of the pathogens, the virals, the bacterias, the infections, the parasites, all the things that are housing in our body from living in that cave, this light comes through and starts to penetrate into them and starts to say, hey, like, you can't stick around if you're going to be able to continue to bring through this much light. So all of that starts to come to the surface, sometimes in really profound and frightening and life-altering ways, like Akara and myself have both been experiencing this year.
Yeah.
And a lot of other people. 2019 is a huge year of preparing our temple, preparing our body to hold the frequencies that are coming through in 2020. That being said, as this light comes through, like, all of that stuff that's not in harmonic resonance, right, vibrating the same frequency or at least the same spectrum of light, has to be purged from your body in order for your body to be able to hold that frequency.
Right. And I would say this also ties into the concept of the shadow body as well, at least the way I understand it. People, depending on the area of study you're coming from, they have different, obviously, definitions and explanations of the shadow body. But if we could also, the way that I like to look at it, because I think this is a very helpful visual, is if we've been walking through lifetimes with our energy bodies, through the physical bodies, all oriented or angled on a linear progression. In other words, we're walking forward, right, through our experiences. And if we can imagine the spirit body, which again in Kemet or Egypt was a separate but interconnected thing from the physical light body. So if we could imagine that this sun that Ahaumna is talking about, that radiant eternal sun, being more really associated with your spirit body, and that spirit body very much being oriented as well with you, walking the plane, if you will, but behind you, shining through its rays. So as we're walking, what can happen for many reasons to not get into it, but literally even on an atomic, physical, matter base level, in your outer light body expression, certain things can actually come off of alignment a little bit with the spirit, with the eternal sun that you are. So the analogy that I like to use is, everybody remembers as a child putting rays or light behind a prism, right? And if you just twist that prism just a little bit, what happens, right? It's going to refract that light in a myriad of ways. And so a shadow body can almost develop where instead of that light shining directly forward and creating with full power and clarity, whatever your intention is, some things inside the body go off and refract. So literally that's very much what it means to be out of alignment. And an alignment can really much have to do with the spin. If everything is spinning and spiraling, even on a, electrons are going around, right? Even a nucleus core and things like that, and that's all happening inside your cells. If these spirals are kind of going out of phase with one another, that's where we start to have the disruptions, the disconnection, the breakdown in information and communication. And really, that's what we're talking about here. When we say light and energy, that is very much consciousness. That is the current or the currency that carries all that through from pure awareness, again, into your creations. And that is really how everything is alive or given life, perpetually, and perpetually renewed through that breathing process, through those rays of the eternal sun that you are. But if things are then out of alignment, what can happen is those energies are not able to be in resonance with that continuation of that light flow. And so they'll actually start to lose energy. In other words, that spin, if you will, starts to spin more and out. It spirals out and out and out. And before you know it, you have aspects and parts of yourself in all different directions. So that's now what's happening is we're on a timeline path, an event horizon, if you will, again, with our spirit on this plane. But this is a special timeline where we're actually enfolding and bringing back all these kind of spiraling out on all these different vectors, all these different lifetimes. We're trying to enfold and blend that back together again. So we're doing that on many energy body levels, but what does that then also outpicture and look like on a physical body, which is really the nature of your question.
You're really tapping into, just to contextualize it for the group, because they're learning about the Egyptian 10 bodies of light system, and you're tapping into, I felt like you're tapping into basically Sekhem, which is it's like the energy system that's integrated into this physical body, and then the Shu, which is the shadow body. And one of the things that I've told them is that when it comes to aligning Sekhem or attuning Sekhem, one of the most important things is actually, like, are you walking your soul's path? It's actually, you know, are you living in alignment with your soul's desire? Are you literally emanating and being, like, radiating through your crystalline kind of form who you really are? And that, you know, yes, we can do acupuncture, yes, we can do yoga, yes, we can do qigong, yes, we can do all of these practices that assist in, like, building that mind, body, spirit alignment, like, over time. And I highly recommend you do those. Like, don't not do them. But, you know, you could get into a toxic relationship that's, like, partly from your shadow body. It's coming from Shu. It's coming from an unprocessed karma or something. And whoa, and now you just went, wow, and you're working, you've just kind of tilted off your life path, and now you start having a physical health crisis all of a sudden. And the underlying issue is that you went out of alignment with your soul's divinity because of something in your Shu, because of, you know, maybe an unmet need or a desire or a trauma from this life or from another lifetime, and you thought this is going to be the way to fulfill it, and now you're starting to suffer. And so our bodies can tell us a lot. They can actually, like, your body is your guru, and it can actually guide you back to the alignment. And, you know, in our, like, the way that I'm teaching this is that, you know, we don't like beat ourselves up because of the Shu. Like, the Shu is our power source. So, you know, when those things happen, and maybe it's a job, or maybe it's a relationship, or whatever it is, something's going on, an unhealthy behavior pattern or something that's throwing your prism off, that is where you're missing power. There's an awakening to be had there. There's usually something in order to, you know, our Shu is unconscious. So there's a part of us that we aren't yet conscious of yet when we're getting thrown off. And so it's an opportunity to alchemize that into, you know, basically a reconnection to the higher self, one of the higher bodies of life, one of the higher aspects of self, which is your power. So to the Egyptians, Kemet, the land of dark, the land of black, you know, we embraced the opportunity of the shadow, which is, I think, something that anybody that's walking, like, a tantric path really needs to do, which is, like, embrace that as an opportunity to grow instead of self-flagellation and, you know, the end. So anyways, I just wanted to say that because I just felt like you were just speaking right into that
for sure.
little part of the process there.
Even if we ground that and take it into different language that is mainstream, we would call our shadow body our pain body. And this is the vast majority of humanity is living through their pain body and not through their spirit body. right? And that pain body, if we go even into what the Egyptians would teach, right? This is accumulated over lifetimes, the pain. So where we think we might be being thrown off for one experience, like the one you mentioned, that's actually been out of alignment for lifetimes, just waiting for the opportunity to course correct itself through what we feel is a catastrophic moment of realization, right? And when we've been so far out of alignment, which many of us have because of the mutations that took place in this reality, we'll call it, we are receiving catastrophic realignments because we've been so far off, and we're being asked to compress everything, bring everything back into alignment multidimensionally in such a short space of time as we know it, like on linear time, even though it's happening like it's been happening for aeons. That being said, to our conception, it seems like we're compressing it into like this short amount of time, like 3 years, right, of our human years. So we're now compressing millions of lifetimes of being out of alignment in 3 years.
It's intense.
Which is like, whoa, we all signed up for this. It's perfect and awesome, and we are capable of doing it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, right? Which speaks to our evolutionary capacity. That being said, what is most important right now is recognizing where our pain body is still governing our lives. Whether we're in the future and our pain body is slightly ahead of ourselves, like it literally will be in front of you or behind you or to either side of you based on how you're experiencing your reality. Whereas when it's in front of you, there's this like internal like fear, or you're kind of like living for what might happen in the future and are kind of like afraid of what might happen in the future, or are constantly on edge about what might come next. And that can result from trauma, right? From abuse and things like that happen where your pain body shoots in front of you and it starts leading the way. Or the pain body's in the back, which is then it's stuck in the past. It cannot let go of whatever happened in someone's life that is very traumatic. And we all have so much trauma because we are processing so much karma in such a short space of time that we all created life experiences that are very traumatic in order to accomplish that goal. So that pain body being behind, we cannot process our pain body when it's not in our bodies, because this body temple is what processes the pain body and shifts it to allow the spirit to come through. We have to bring our pillar into alignment so that our spirit can flow through us. But when our pain body is out here, over here, back here, we cannot do that. So the first thing is like we have to bring our pain body into us, which means we have to feel everything. Feel all of our trauma and all of our pain and all of this suffering that we have experienced like deeply within the core of our being, and allow it to come into our body so that it can be processed and healed. Because we can't process something we have like pushed out of us and said, nope, I can't deal with this anxiety right now. You just go up there and you just lead the way. And I'm just going to stay back here and kind of numb out that anxiety or whatever it is.
Ahaumna, this is really interesting because I felt like in that, like the end of 2018, like sort of December, it seemed like a lot of I just call it the priestess network, like everybody started going into health, specifically health crises. Mm-hmm. And I went into one that was so full on, and it literally felt like some sort of demon had been dredged up from the bowels of the earth, and I could like feel like all these like more, femmes, divine femmes around the planet, like, and all of us were like so traumatized. It was like insomnia and like it was like a terror. Like that was what was like going through like the females. And I got this calling, like, it's not just you that's experiencing this, like you need to go out, you need to like find, you need to clear the Akashic records. So you mentioned 2019 is the year to bring our body temples into alignment. Have you had any downloads? Is there anything you want to speak to on the cosmic level of like why, or what we're processing, or why this is the year for
Yeah,
that.
of course. And we don't even need to span out to the cosmic level. We can span out to the solar level to see this and look at what's happening in our planetary system with this alignment between Pluto, the South Node, and Saturn, which is like a once in a many lifetimes alignment because Pluto takes 240 years to make its rotation. So this alignment brings through like our South Node, our karma, our past experience, even though it's not past, it's just what's most vibrationally in resonance with this lifetime. So the experiences that we have active memory of, the lifetimes we have active memory of, would be considered in our South Node. And then we have Saturn, which comes in and squeezes us dry of all of our pain and misalignments, and Pluto, which creates massive collective change. So the three, the three most powerful planets for change and transformation all came into exact conjunction alignment with each other.
When did that happen?
Around January. It's been slow, like these planets, Pluto, you gotta understand, Pluto moves so slow. Saturn moves slow-ish, right? 28 years to come around the sun. So that's slow in comparison, but not as slow as Pluto. So these alignments have been slowly coming together, right? And when they're in a few degrees of each other, we start to feel it. So we could have started to feel it back in October. That being said, they came like smack dab all same degree in January, and they're still riding that wave together really through, well, they're going to start to, they've already started to separate because Saturn moves a little bit quicker, the South Node moves the opposite way. So they've already started to separate, but this is a process that's undergoing for the rest of this year into the beginning of next year. And if we think about what Saturn represents the foundations of our body. It represents our skeletal system. It represents our lymphatic system. It represents everything that is the foundation and the structure of our body. So we're going through this powerful structural shift of our body, but also structural shifts of our entire body.
Yeah,
right? So
the body of humanity,
the body of all the structures that we've put in place. So think about all of the political changes that have happened, the environmental changes that have happened, the social economic changes that have happened. All of the structures of our existence have been going through this really deep and profound purge, right?
Yeah.
So we don't even have to go out to cosmic. It's right in our neighborhood, right in our solar sphere, for why we're undergoing such a profound transformation right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And one more question for you, because I know that the body that you have in this life has been, from the moment you were born, you've had health challenges. There's been some pretty severe struggles that you've had, and I know that, you know, I just sort of blossomed into my healing crisis, but it's ending up becoming a real gift for me. And I feel like you're somebody that really is doing this deep work to alchemize the pain into like a beautiful gift. So I'm wondering if you could, like, what, for other people who may be watching this, because I know not everybody here is going through like the health crisis thing, but I also know there are a few of you who are. So for those who are, what words of wisdom could you share to anybody that's going through a major, like, feel to heal phase?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
What's coming up is divine use of will and to actually cultivate the energy of pride within yourself. Because for me, like, I was constantly being given diagnoses from doctors starting at a very young age, and my internal compass was always, I'm going to prove them wrong. Like, I'm going to show them that I'm walking at 30 and I'm doing all these things that I was told I wouldn't be able to do, right? So it turned into this inner competition against myself, and that is like a gift frequency of one of the gene keys. Here I go into that spectrum. That being said, when we actually take our externalized vanity and we turn it inwards and we allow ourselves to compete against ourselves and allow that to be your highest expression and not taking in any, like, my greatest thing is to not listen to anyone who tells you what's happening inside of your body. Because the moment people start telling you what's happening inside of your body, it triggers something inside of you that gives up. That's like, oh, fuck, I have cancer. Sorry. I don't know if your people are going to swear, but I
curse. Yeah. I curse. Okay. It's fine.
Like, oh, you know, all these things, one after the other, are all coming up. You know, we have a major health crisis throughout our entire world, right? The body of humanity is devolving rapidly, right? So we have to take our power back in order to heal our bodies. So the moment that we fall into someone telling us, this is what's wrong with you, and you have to take this and do that and do this in order to heal yourself, and it's putting something toxic in your body, or, you know, making you feel like I can't do this, or I'm never going to heal, you won't heal. And you'll likely just grow in that disease. So you have to have your power internally always. And to never take what anyone says to you with a glass half full, right? Like, don't fully take it in and say, this is what it means to be. Like, get second and third and fourth and fifth opinions on everything that's happening inside of your body, so that you are able to tune into your intuition that can say, okay, yeah, what they said doesn't really feel right for me. I'm really resonating with what's going on over here, so who can I then connect to that has already healed that, or that knows how to heal that, right? Don't listen to people who don't know how to heal things, right? Like, as far as I'm concerned, if they haven't had successful rates in healing these things, then they should just be, their opinion doesn't matter. Because there's so much fear in the medical system. There's so much lack of spirit in the scientific world, which is what our medical system runs on. Like, my saving grace in life, and I've overcome things that, like, are just really profound, and it just is what it is. It's my path, so that I can transfigure into light, because that's my journey. That being said, like, my saving grace was my connection to spirit. At all times, like, these spiritual guides were saying, don't take those pills, don't listen to them, like, do this, hang out with this plant, like, and you'll be cool. And that's how it healed things. It wasn't from medicine.
Just so you know, like, Ahaumna was told, like, she wouldn't walk. I mean, there were serious health issues. So, yeah. It's like, yeah, that takes courage to, like, listen to your inner voice when, you know, the authority, the outer authority is saying, like, you're incurable, or you're gonna have this forever. And I mean, my early years, for me, it was like way more of a mental thing. I mean, I was told that I was gonna be pretty much like on antipsychotics. I was told that I was mentally ill, and I had to do all this work with the mind, like, boom, boom, boom. And so that's one of my superpowers, is like Akashic, like, mental plane wisdom now. And I kind of feel like where the greatest challenges can become the real gift if we let it. And I mean, that's definitely an Egyptian philosophy right there. Take the black and make it into gold.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing, to just kind of complete that thought, is that there is no external authority over you. None. All the authority, all the wisdom is in here. No one is an authority. So if something doesn't resonate with you, like, listen to that. If your body's like, no, that's not truth, then seek out people like Alex who can offer a multidimensional expression, or, like, help you to really see what's going on here and give you hope. You know, like, I've seen people come to him that were told, like, they were going to die by Western medicine, and, like, he's their last ditch hope, because he knows all these technologies that medicine just isn't talking about. Like, we have everything available on this planet to heal anything at this moment in time, and it's just kept from the public, at least in America.
So let's kind of shift to Alex, because you do have your finger on the pulse of these amazing healing technologies, a lot of which aren't even available in America. A lot of European technologies that are really the latest, cutting edge. What would you say if are like this? I guess what are the staples that we really all need at this time? Are there any like overarching suggestions? I know everybody is different, but you have some incredible supplements you've recommended to me. You've had incredible devices that I've used that I'm just like, what? Like, this is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. It's always a ever-evolving process because there's so many technologies at this place in time, moving into the golden age again, that are accessible to us. And it's a discernment process for sure. So obviously everybody's unique in their healing process and stage. So, but it's possible still to narrow things down. In general, we all have a lot of things we equally face in terms that can challenge us health-wise. And also when you really look at the manifestation of illness or disease, dis-ease, or any of that stuff, you will find that those, let's call them programs or energies, configurations, have the similar patterned consequences in the body. So in other words, all of us here and listening to the call, we have the same energy structure on a very fundamental template level. But, and I should say, is everybody also manifests, based on a million variables, different types of symptomologies, different things that end up being their content of their healing process, their experiences. So I'm looking at technologies from the standpoint, therapeutic protocols, that go back to how does it really affect and help shift or support the fundamental processes of your template. And so if we look at things that way, and this is very much a discussion of the epigenome, DNA, RNA, that type of thing. And when we say epigenome, by the way, that's actually more a type of chemical or a chemical, that's K-H-E-M, which is related to chemet, chemical overlay template all over the DNA that we found in the last 20 years or so that is directly influenced by the mind and the environment, any types of energies or things in the environment. This is mainstream biology, by the way, whether you believe it or not. So this is commonly accepted. It's called epigenetics, if you haven't heard of it. So this epigenome layer is very much, the acronym for that is EGO, E-G-O. And it is related to that also. So in other words, things in your energy body, of course, have their outpicturing in the physical light body. So there's a lot where you can get into, well, if all that's going on and there's disruptions in the light, which is the information, the knowledge, your consciousness as it flows, everybody has their unique reasons for interruptions, then what are actually the modalities that are going to actually help correct or restore communication, right? Can restore the flow. So that's one way. There's many ways to look at all the products out there, all the different modalities, and try to filter and figure out, right? That's the one way I do it, as one way to narrow it down out of 10,000 different things. So yeah, I would say that first and foremost, we're constantly eating food. That actually has one of the biggest effects on our life. And drinking, breathing, but these are the main things because we do it all the time, right? And of course, food itself and things we're taking in is gross matter substance, slowed down light to a low enough vibration. So, anybody who's fasted obviously knows that food is quite powerful, or things that we ingest in general, or going without water or something like that. So this ties into, well, why are we eating the food? That's a longer discussion. But one of the important aspects in there is the elements. So really, when we get into alchemy and understanding how is it that we are creating this reality, or why am I able to bring through compassion? Or why do I have this crazy quality over here, that's bringing through this just really polarized, distorted consciousness? all that actually is running down channels, like a larger circulatory field in your energy bodies, that basically follow different combinations of elemental sequencing. It's called a transduction sequence. So you're taking that pure, eternal light, full spectrum ray, and then you're downstepping it through all your bodies, mixing it and blending it in different ratios. But these are all the mother and all the family elemental lines that eventually we get.
This is what happens when Alex talks.
So everybody's staying with me here, but this is tied into minerals. This is the briefer summation, but basically it eventually plugs into this sacred periodic table that we are. In other words, we're artists, we're creators working with this palette of consciousness qualities. So we could almost say that hate is a really disrupted and imbalanced ratio of certain types of minerals that normally don't get combined. Mineral energies.
Looking at chemistry.
So chemistry is sacred. This is all, spirituality is very much the sciences. They're one and the same. They were one and the same in past golden ages.
They will be again.
Yeah.
They're in Egypt.
Yeah.
Certainly in Kemet, yeah, they were, and way before that too. But so this cycle around is coming back. But basically, in other words, what we find now is people are running a big deficiency. So the deficiency is in minerals, but on this body level. So the first place we start is minerals are very much responsible for a lot of things. One of them is basically allowing all those other levels of your consciousness that are coming in through all these elemental rays, all these different families of minerals, to actually plug into your physical telluric template down here, dimension 1 and 2, what we refer to as your outer light body on density 1.
Telluric would be the mineral kingdoms
elemental.
Of the earth, the elemental mineral.
Right. So
diamonds.
How did we get to this space? Again, we don't have to get into that, but basically we are in a space where we're having to eat food versus just transfiguring or transmuting the light into what we need. But we're taking a path trying to get back to that point where we're using the light elements directly. So in the interim, what a lot of people do to really turn on dormant areas of their consciousness, and it ties into, of course, the part of the DNA that we call junk DNA. There's many different dormant or unconscious parts of our identity. We're trying to bring conscious and to receive light and turn on light and run and broadcast their energy signatures, their information again in the body. So that comes into replenishing what has been depleted. And that is also a conversation about the status of the planet, agriculture. This is a long conversation. But in other words, supplementation and working with minerals first is really the key. So there's different products and supplements that can do that. There's a lot out there, and then you have to discern through them.
One thing that I would just add for like a visual understanding of everything that he just said, if you think about, a ladder as each step on the ladder is a dimension of consciousness that we are stepping into. If the foundations of the ladder, if the lower prongs on that ladder are broken, right, the telluric first and second dimension, we're here living in third and fourth, we're awakening into, going into density 2 and into the fourth and fifth dimensions. If the rungs of the bottom of the ladder are broken or unstable, you're never going to be able to climb up that ladder.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So no matter how spiritual or woke we think we are, if the chemistry of our body is out of whack, we're going to get to a point where maybe we can jump over those prongs, but the foundations of the ladder is broken. So the higher you climb, the more chance that ladder is eventually going to break.
Yeah, I mean, I started having, because I do transmit a lot of like Shakti and light through me, especially if I'm doing like big seminars like that are for lots of people, for the public. And what basically started happening is it just started feeling like I'm trying to run like 1,000 volts of energy through a 100-watt bulb. Like it was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting fried here. It just felt like I was being fried. And I know that, I worked with like a TCM doctor, and I did like a really deep Ayurvedic Khichdi just because I just needed to stabilize. And then I started working with you, and you got me on all these mineral supplements, and I don't know, like some of the more earthy clay, I know they're probably more like binders, but like I loved all of that stuff. Like if it was earthy, clayey, or like minerally, it was just like my body was like, oh yes, I need that. And that's what it felt like. I could be consuming more what I would call like higher frequency, like juice and fruit and vegetables, and I wouldn't like get all out of balance because it felt like those minerals were grounding me in a way.
The important thing to just remember is because we're coming out of this Kali Yuga, we're coming out of the destruction, our soils have been absolutely destroyed and raped and pillaged and polluted, and even the highest quality organic fruits and vegetables these days, if it's grown in the soil and they're not doing processes in their soil to remineralize, realchemize their soil, there are no minerals in your lettuce or in your apples like there once was. We also, by nature, we used to just reach onto the apple tree, pick the apple, and eat it with the dirt on it or with whatever on it because we weren't worried about pesticides and chemtrails releasing their aluminum down onto the apples, right? So our body is naturally, when it's in harmonic with this earth, eating a little dirt, right?
Yeah.
Which is why those clays and the dirt, literally it's called dirt or black gold, like your body's like, oh my gosh, I need this fulvic humic acid, like this is something that has been missing. So, you know, even when we think, okay, yeah, I'm like eating raw and I'm living healthy and I'm doing organic, like we have to remember that the foundation of the earth has been compromised, which is her soils, it's her mineral kingdom. So we have to, in order to replenish our bodies so that we can be internally recreating this external world, because this is where it begins, we have to be thinking about our template, our foundations, which is our minerals, right? It is what helps, it's the building block. So, you know, adding minerals in and you're thinking, well, I'm already eating, like in America, I know this is a huge problem, and maybe some of you guys live in different parts of the world. That being said, like even fruit is being harvested too early. When it's harvested too early, it doesn't complete its mineralization. So if you pick a cantaloupe at the store and it's hard and it doesn't smell, it's because it has no value for your body. Even if you think, oh, it's organic and it's cantaloupe, it must be good for me. It's really not doing much other than adding dead energy into your body.
Well, and that's one of the other things that we have went over in this module. I mean, I know not everybody can grow their own food, but techniques for actually cultivating the earth. And we're in the module of sacred cow. Cow is obviously a symbol of agriculture, but how we actually cultivate the foods that we eat has a really big impact on us. And so some of the things that I've been teaching them are, you know, even just intentional energy work with food, prayer work with food, lifestyle practices that you can do to just be as much as we can raising the frequency of what we are consuming.
And I would argue to say that everyone can grow their own food, because you can have an herb garden inside of your house, inside, so long as it's in a window that gets light, and you can grow herbs that are going to have the vitamins and minerals that your body really needs, so that can be supplementing your body. And anyone can grow holy basils or mints or parsleys or, you know, the dills and all these things that the herbs have the power, right? So if you can't grow outside because of whatever, the soil's eroded and all the things, and you don't have time to tend to an outdoor garden, which I totally understand, anyone can put some mason jars in a little dirt and fill it up with some seeds and grow herbs that can help shift their body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Remember, some of the healthiest greens still are sprouts, and sprouts take up hardly any room.
And you can literally sprout things in your closet. I did it for many years.
Yeah. Would you share some of the, maybe some of your personal experiences with doing healing protocols and how you handled that process, like what you can sort of expect in when you make a dietary shift, or if you do a cleanse, or if you start a healing protocol, how do you guys navigate that in your own personal body and your own personal path?
I would start by saying get support. Have support for your mental and emotional process, because the physical detox is, the body knows how to detox. It doesn't have an issue. The body knows how to thrive. It just terrifies our mind and emotions, and all of our stuck stuff starts to come to the surface when you're doing, say, a fast, or you're releasing, say, sugars or caffeine or things, meats and cheeses and glutens and all the things that you've been hearing, like, I gotta let this go, I gotta let this go. And there's just like this addiction to it, that when you release that, you're going to be purging
all this fucking new vegetables and everything,
mentally and emotionally. So have support, and whether that supports your partner, or it's a coach, or it's or you post on your social media, hey, I want to do this cleanse. Does anyone else want to do it with me, to support each other? And you guys get in a group chat and you say, hey, I have this, like, I'm doing a really profound amoeba protocol right now to release these amoebas from my blood. And for 2 weeks, I had this profound rage coming up all day, every day, no matter what was happening. And Alex was my rep that I could say, hey, I have all this rage coming up. I'm obviously not going to go and like bash something with a baseball bat, but that's what this energy wants to do right now. So you need to have someone or people that you can have these conversations with that aren't going to be triggered by what's coming up for you, that can hold space and help you to not give up. Because in those moments, you're going to want to give up. The emotional body is going to be like, this is drama. Go back into your pain body. Push it out of your body. Don't look at this right now. So have support. That's the biggest thing.
Alex, do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, no, that's definitely an important one for sure. Is in these processes, we're removing the buffer, if you will. The buffer that necessarily isn't a good buffer. It's the buffer that polarizes your consciousness, that makes things conscious, now unconscious. It's really more of a void. Those buffers are really toxins. Those buffers could be pathogens of all kinds. And I don't know if you talked about this in your program so far, but really every belief you have, every emotion you have, and there's many you can name, long list, they each have their correlate in the body. So you have a feeling body, let's just keep it simple, you have a mental body, but what does that look like on a physical level? What's equivalent? And that's where we get into naming things like that toxin, that pathogen, these things, as the outwardly manifest. So if we're now cleaning that up, we're removing it, then very much it is a mental game, mental, emotional, feeling game. That's what's really going to make the difference between success, sticking with it.
And if that's a concept that's new to you, you can easily hop onto Google, and Chinese medicine has really extensively traced down, okay, like anger is liver gallbladder, grief is...
I really love Chinese medicine.
So if that is a concept that is new to you, okay, what emotion keeps coming up? And maybe I should look at, what organ in my body is related to that emotion, and maybe it's time to start cleansing that particular organ. But that being said, you don't want to jump to detoxing unless your detox meridians and channels are open first. So always begin with that.
I want to, because this last year has been a real awakening for me into the pathogen world and the toxin world and its connection to the demonic worlds, which I was totally unconscious of before. And basically, I didn't even know that I was physically sick. I just thought I was like, damn, I'm just getting, like, I'm just like battling demons like every day. And then I realized, oh, well, I have, you know, these parasites and these toxins in my body, and that they're attached to that. And Alex, I wanted your perspective. Like, how do you, because at first I was just like, I'm going to get these things out of me, like, roar. And I actually could not do that. If I tried to, like, full blown, like, go from where I was at that point in time and just, like, try to purge my whole system of, like, everything that's in it. Well, I mean, at that point in time, I was like, my physical constitution wasn't strong enough, and I didn't have the support in my life to do that. And then B, like, we're going through, like, you know, the process of life, running programs, leading retreats, the stuff that happens. And I realized that I had to take this, it was more of almost like a tender mother approach instead of, for me, like a warrior approach with my body. And I had to really just start to recognize that all of these kind of parasites and toxins and like the distorted chemicals, like pollution chemicals that were in my body, were connected to some form of an intelligence of some kind that I had a synergy with, meaning there was a part of me that had a vibrational match to that somewhere in my body. And also that, like, those, you know, especially the parasites and, like, the little intelligent things, they wanted to live too, you know. So when I would start cleansing, you know, they would start freaking out. And then a lot of times, before I really realized the difference between me and the thing, I would freak out myself, you know, when the cleanse started. And then I realized, oh, like, that's not me. Like, that's actually this thing. Yeah. And so I had to start developing, it's like you were saying, the physical part's easy. You just don't eat this, you do the protocol. But then I had to start developing these, like, pretty sophisticated methods of working with my inner psyche. Yeah. And, like, almost seeing my inner psyche as a biome. Like, I was like, wow, I'm not just a Kara. Like, I'm an ecosystem. like what's generating my thoughts is actually, like, a whole little ecosystem of, like, these different microorganisms. And when you were talking about the chems and, like, the transition from light into matter, into chemical constituents, I was thinking about, you know, to the Egyptians, like, the chakra system correlates to our glandular system, and our glandular system is basically translating the consciousness of the chakras into biochemical agents known as hormones that communicate with our organs and are running the organs in the body. And I feel like you have some wisdom on this. Like, either if you want to talk to working with the parasitic consciousness and what are, like, some of the good ways you've discovered to, like, best support the alchemizing or the cleansing of that energy from our ecosystem, our individual biomes, or if you wanted to talk more of, I just feel like somewhere in that transition from light into chemistry, into, like, altered chems that we don't really want, maybe that got generated from bad spells in ancient Egypt.
All of the above.
Yeah.
It's never one thing. It's usually, like, everything that's a contributing factor. But so, yeah, there's a lot that we could, of course, break down in this to try to focus in. I think that you actually have touched on and shared with them already some of the most important work that most people I see miss in the health world, and even the people that are just hyper-focused on tweaking their health and performance, which is the new trend now, and all these different things you can do out there. High-level practitioners, you name it. There's a big area that's missed, which is that yes, there is parasitical consciousness that manifests in the body, which is, of course, microcosm, macrocosm. It's both outside the body in the fields. It's both inside the body. That's the same thing. Yes, that exists. Yes, you're moving towards a point where you'll be free of that completely. Just only your original true self, your pure, immaculate self. That's all true. However, in the short term, in the now, you are an ecosystem. You very much are the planet. And it's good to keep in mind that the planet doesn't necessarily say, oh, you know, this particular vermin or animal is running a little rampant over here. I'm just going to wipe it out. Like, I haven't heard of that ever happening. Like, usually it's it's just a slow, magical process of how it just slowly restores balance. Mm-hmm. So I'll use a little parallel here. So it's a good analogy thinking of the planet and the terrain that we're walking around in, which is filled as an ecosystem. We also have our own terrain, which is in and around the cells. And so a big piece is toxins, pathogens of all kinds, parasites, you name it. Where do they hang out? Well, they exist and they live on the terrain, of course, in or around your cells. So one protocol out there that is a gentler approach, so there's different ways you can go about things, is one aggressive approach would be like, oh, there's some real predatory parasites in a forest or in an area over here. How about we just wipe out the forest? We'll just cut down all the trees. We'll clear the land. Technically, that would clear the issue. However, that could potentially imbalance other areas because everything's interconnected. You can't just go wiping and clearing out land without there being some other effect, obviously. We know that, but people forget this in their body, that it's the same analogy, it holds true. So the term is bioterrain modification. Modification meaning that we're modifying either what we're eating, what we're thinking, pretty much all of the above, and we're trying to restore a better or a different kind of balance in and around the cells. But that also then goes back to, well, what is in and around the cells? That's the first step, knowing what that is. Mainly it's water, it's fluid. It's the medium that life is being born out of. And so those fluids need to be clean. So that also means modifying one's lifestyle so you're taking in more pure energies and also refining and filtering and detoxifying slowly. So there's different ways you can do that, and then we're back to minerals again. Minerals are a big part of that. But nature also does this all the time. In other words, in a million years from now, do you think I'm going to go to an apple orchard and find that the soils are polluted? Of course not. There's whole processes in place in the soil, in the air, it's everywhere that nature of the planet Earth has its own same process. Our biome is a big part of that process that is able to create different types of compounds of what we need to clean the bioterrain. So there are definitely like products and things like that that can support that in cleaning the bioterrain. So pure air, pure water, different compounds, again, that normally are created down here. Sometimes we need to ingest more of those compounds because we're in a paradox of a situation where it's like, well, what if things are already compromised? What if we're already living in a dirty landfill? How would we ever clean our hands if we're in the dirt already? Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. So this is usually kind of like the healing crisis, sometimes trap that life can find itself in. In that type of scenario, really the only way is an intervention of some kind. And an intervention simply happens by grace, first and foremost. Then the outward manifestation or inward manifestation of grace is through some kind of physical form. It could be this video, it could be a friend, it could be a divine message in Aha. It could be, who knows, a million different ways it can come in. So first and foremost, it is a mental, emotional, spiritual game. First, praying, intending, opening, taking oneself through a process to receive grace, the power of grace, and then however that is perfectly going to manifest for you. this is also an important point because we can saturate ourselves with studying information and knowledge and all these healing protocols. And it's like, oh my God, there's so much out there. There is a lot out there. How are you going to discern through all that?
Yeah, you need grace.
So again, there's going to be a perfect combination. There's going to be a perfect formula for you, the perfect piece at the right time. Timing is a big piece of it. The order, divine right timing. This is all part of divine grace and how it actually unfolds itself through you. So again, this is a huge piece. A lot of people, if they're still in a little bit of a fear mode and they're still kind of fighting these things, they're in some kind of battle with themselves.
Yeah.
Usually there'll be a little bit of an unconscious or habitual way of looking outward for help without doing the first step. And that means you're out of order. So that means that I could share with you the most amazing healing protocol ever. However, it might not work.
That's so true. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'd love to just add to that, like one of the most important things for healing parasites and pathogens and all of these things that are invading invasive to our body in some way is that a lot of times when I see people talking about these, it's coming from a space of victimhood. Right, these demons are attacking me from the inside, right? It's coming from the space of victimhood, and if you're in victimhood, your body will not heal. And something that, to just go a little bit metaphysical into this, to remember is that because our geometry has been off on this plane, we haven't been making proper bardo passage, which is where we go to be purified in between our lifetimes. So because we haven't been making proper bardo passages, what's been happening is we get to the bardo and then we get thrown right back into another life without going up into our higher bodies and having more of a life experience. Well, because we're not going back up to our higher bodies, we're forgetting that all of our junk has been purified in this bardo space, and it keeps living on in that bardo space as their own consciousness. So all of the demons are actually just parts of ourselves that are in the astral plane, in the bardo space, that are coming back because we're making similar choices, and they haven't realized that we've already been forgiven. So those then demons, as they become parts of ourselves in other timelines, make agreements with other demons who are still in the bardo plane, and they make contracts, so then we get externalized demons coming in from other places. So where I'm going with this is all the way back to the beginning of what we said, is that the key is that we're bringing ourselves back into alignment. So we're bringing all parts of ourselves that we've left in the bardos and that come in like these demon attacks or parasites or all these things are actually a part of us that has not yet integrated back into spirit. So our goal then is to remember that this parasite inside of me or this pathogen that's inside of me is not, I am not a victim to that, right? I can integrate this back into myself because war never works. Right?
Yeah.
War never works. So the warrior approach is never going to work because our body just wants to be nurtured.
Well, and that's one of the things, like we started this module talking about, breastfeeding because, cows give milk and the sacred significance of milk as our first form of nourishment. And one of the things that, my sister just had a baby and she's breastfeeding. I don't know if you guys have ever been around breastfeeding mothers, but there is a palpable aura around a breastfeeding mother that is it's soothing, it's peaceful, it's loving, sometimes you look at between a mother and a child and it's like the most incredible love you've ever seen. And you think about our bodies are forming very, very rapidly, during that time when we're on the mother's breast. And I know not all of us were breastfed, which is unfortunate. And not all of our mothers knew what they needed to be doing psychoactively, basically, to create that womb space. I think there's some really advanced technologies that hopefully next week when we get into sacred sexuality, we could start talking about, what women can do to actually help the bodies, the souls come into the bodies while they're on the breast. Basically what we do with clients healing. You know, we could do that with the kids coming in. But anyways, what I want to say is that I found, and this was just my direct experience, was that I could only really heal my body and nurture, like go through the whole process that I needed to go through, which I think we're all going to go through our own unique version of that. But I had to come from this place of like real deep, loving nurturance towards myself. And then also I found that I had to come from a place of like real deep, loving nurturance for the symptomologies, for the energies and the entities behind the symptomologies. I mean, I even start, you know, I'll start doing things like, you know, when I was having a healing reaction, you know, not only would I like be soothing myself, but I would also start talking to whatever was being released, kind of midwifing it, like dakiniing it, like you're okay, you're experiencing a die-off right now. This isn't the end. There's another form of life that you're going to transform into, and like, yay, it's just kind of like, just like taking care of the dogs, you know, like just kind of like nurture it, nurture myself and nurture the environment along in its transformation. The environment a lot of times being my gut or my bloodstream or my brain, and just kind of letting it, like, yeah, I feel like if I didn't integrate that right away, I was gonna like just probably die. just probably, like, I don't know, something was gonna happen. That was what had to come in, and actually that was what brought Hathor's essence, I guess, as the sacred cow, like this particular aspect of her, in for me, of like, oh, this is what sacred nourishment is. This is what we need to actually like really build these light bodies, is we still need that womb space that we had at the mother's breast. It's just that we have to now create that for ourselves. And then hopefully as we do that for our own bodies, we're going to learn how to create that for other people's bodies and for the earth, you know, and come back into being, you know, the loving stewards of the planet, instead of the raping and pillaging parasites. All of it. Yeah, I don't even want to use those words now. It's kind of like, let's just affirm let's affirm the transformation.
It's important to realize that really, again, we're responsible for keeping our ports open and literally bringing these things up the birth canal, the canal of water, opening the ports. There's whole analogies with shipping. And basically, if these things come in, this is our choice on some level. And so then, if they exist and we know they exist, whatever we're trying to shift or nurture, it's always there for a reason. And the deeper knowing or lesson is that all is self and all is here to support you if one is able to actually offer support, if one is able to actually embody grace, if one is able to, in other words, how are you able to respond to whatever the element is that comes into your awareness, and then you choose to reform or shift a new relationship with what manifests, again, into your attention. And again, that's all we can work with, right? Because everything else must be unconscious. But we don't have to worry or stress or think about that, because the body, the larger body of the planet, we're just bodies within bodies, always will bring into our awareness and our attention through some message, some way, some form, what is most important in that moment to step into a new relationship with. So it's very much an energetic process. And we use, again, our different levels of embodiment on how we're going to choose a new relationship with whatever that is. But see, when we take on a nurturing, say, let's say quality of the creator, or say maybe something of a feminine nature, what qualities are we bringing through? Let's say we're bringing through understanding and compassion, for example. Again, that's key because that also has its reflections or representations as a geometry, as a form, as a pattern, as a wave.
As a chemical.
As a chemical, exactly. All these different things that are going to come in, and if there are indeed disrupted patterns energetically somewhere in our fields, we can't go and get something like, oh, I'm going to get the pattern fixer medicine over here. In other words, it can't give you something that you don't have. It doesn't work that way. You can still utilize that thing, but what actually allows it to work? So it is a like attracts like. It will work if you also have that same frequency of compassion, understanding that you're also initiating within yourself. So again, that is the victimhood of, I don't have something and I need to obtain something in order to be in a different state of being.
It's like lack.
Correct. So in other words, this is again a larger conversation back to the importance of spirit, back to the importance of, yes, the bardo and all that stuff, the bardo chamber which accesses spirit. And what we're being called and asked to now is what are these parasites or pathogens or health challenges of all kinds, where are they actually offering us a choice, a new choice, to basically be fully self-resourced. Energetically sovereign means that we're accessing, means many things, but that we're actually authentically accessing within ourselves all of the qualities, the essences, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, we're complete to begin with. So any healing crisis, any challenge that we're faced with is a door within ourselves where we access a new realm of being, where we can actually usher in as custodians and stewards that essence that is required now for actually bringing in whatever else needs to be enfolded or brought back home into the womb. And then what we are then actually raining down as mana rain, as the waters of life, the mother stream from the original mother, that is the fertilizer. That is the catalyst. So we have to we have to sow seeds, and then we also have to pay close attention to what are we fertilizing those seeds with.
Mm-hmm.
And really get very clear, like break out a pen and paper. And you better have some answers. Because otherwise it's just unconscious. Oh, it's just, well, I don't know. And then if it's not, if there's not a clear intention, I'm going to bring this now with this that was brought to my intention, there will always be something else that fertilizes that. And it may be Monsanto in its quality.
Yeah.
Satan always will be able to bring through some sort of weird, distorted chemicals, you know, that are like the echoes of some weird past genetic experiments with some intruder race trying to siphon energy vampirically off of everything. So we're in the midst of that. These GMOs, if you will, but the GMO is very much just an outward manifestation of a spiritual process that people also are experiencing in their own body. So again, we can always look to the outside to see, oh yeah, there's this weird thing going on. What is this whole GMO thing about? Now that there, who cares about that? It's what is that about in here?
Yeah.
Where has there been an internal genetic modification of our...
Yeah, where are we modifying our nature, our unique design?
And if you want to be part of the solution, S-O-U-L, for something out there, you want to do something about it, you feel very passionate about it, that's just an inward calling you back home. Be passionate and redirect that inside. And then say, oh, no, I need to bring in this quality of this element of consciousness, this frequency, and yield this and sow this type of seed and fertilize in this sort of way. And this is back to the magic of cows, the fact that you can graze them on dead land, and in a short space of time, you can have a whole ecosystem of nature pop up, Just
really?
because
What I
this is even
on a cow farm.
This is even in recent TED Talks. Is it's one of the best ways to take it just decrepit, falling apart land. You raise cattle, they'll just basically they'll eat
from the manure,
from them
Right.
eating and then them processing it through their body and then them releasing their sacred manure that's filled with everything that to grow the mushrooms that will then provide for the ecosystem. You actually find a lot of like magic mushrooms on cow dung because of what they're creating.
Yeah.
and then so again, it's back to fertilizer.
Yeah.
So
I didn't even realize magic mushrooms come from cow dung. That's pretty cool. Oh, yeah. This is all like it's like an awakening for me because like I always wanted to live in rural areas, like on farms, and then I'm sad because I just moved off the sunflower farm. These two I'm staying with them right now, and I'm like, I gotta find a new home here in Asheville, but I don't know where. Anyways, that's a new key for me around the sacredness of the cow, and I didn't know that they could like regenerate terrain like that.
Yeah, there's a TED Talk on it. If you just Google TED Talk on cows.
Okay, well, I'm gonna find that and put it in our Facebook group. Another interesting thing is I was gonna post in the Facebook group around why the extending lifespan and then also increasing the time between lives is so important. And I just I didn't put that in the Facebook group because I was like, this is a little too much. And then you started talking about it. But yeah, there is an element, I feel, to this mystery school or to this component of the mystery school, which is connected to the kind of the mysteries of eternal life and like the fountain of youth and maintaining life force and vitality in the body, and how that is important for our spiritual evolution, because the longer that we live, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I almost feel like the first 30 years of my life, it was just get into the body, and then I got all programmed with all this shit that I didn't need, and then it was 10 years of deprogramming, and it's almost okay, now I'm just born. And I'm and for some people at 35, they're done, and there's so much still to integrate. And when we're able to kind of come back into, we've talked about time and the Egyptian cosmological ideas of time, which basically are very different from ours. Their concept of time literally was all plentiful, and how basically Earth time is a reflection of universal time. And when we give ourselves really the space and the time to be present and to nurture our bodies, to nurture our lives, we begin to break out of that. I don't know. I feel like disease and death kind of have this energy to them, and you kind of want soft, open, we're gonna get into Hathor's element as the queen and the royal energy, which is I've had the fortune to hang out with very, very wealthy people. And they just create space. Their spaces are really big, and it's let yourself take up space. Let yourself have the time that you need to really nurture and embody your light, and be patient with yourself in that process, and use these tools that you've learned from this beautiful couple here today. And also just obviously I'm not the best person to support you through a healing protocol process, but I would totally recommend these two. In fact, they're really supporting me, and I mean, you guys are so. You've just been. Thank you so much. First of all, like you've both been so like amazing to me, and it's like I didn't even know what I was getting into. Like, Alex, you would just show up and be like, here, Kara, here's your supplements. And Ahaumna, you would be like, come over, like, get on the devices, get on the machines. And I want to say that, like, as I've been in your hands, I've just been like, I've had this feeling of like, wow, so many people could, like, very deeply benefit from spending a weekend with you guys in your home and just like having your support, your really unique gifts. Ahaumna is so amazing on the level of the soul alignment and, you know, the life path and the spiritual. And Alex, you're incredible with the physical and the tech, you know, the techniques. So I want to promote you guys because I know you've just moved here to Asheville. I'm so grateful that they live here now. We're getting such good, like really good people are moving to Asheville. And you've just got this beautiful new home that that's amazing. And you're going to be doing intensives here.
Yeah, so we have 4-day health and spiritual immersions that you can come and stay with us for a long weekend, and you can find out about those on my site, which is rememberwhyouarehere.com, and just go to the immersion tab, and that's where all the information is on that. And yeah, you can contact us as well. You can get our contact information to Akara, and but that being said, there's a contact form on that site, rememberwhyouarehere.com, and under the immersion tab, and that has a lot about our space, what we've created here. We really created an intentional space that would be like spending a month isolated in nature in a short period of time.
Mm. And you also, I know, Ahaumna, you do amazing work. I mean, having a destiny mapping session with Ahaumna, helping you find your life purpose, your life path. You do a lot of really deep soul healing work, and they can reach out for...
Yeah, all of that's going to be on the Remember Why You're Here site, and then you can link up with me via that site and send me a message.
Follow her on Facebook. And then Alex, where can they find information? You're on YouTube, I know, because he does a lot of reviews of technology, and your website is
Health Hacks, HACKS reviewed. That's past tense, reviewed. So healthhacksreviewed.com. And then my first and last name. If you share that, my YouTube channel is just my first and last name.
Alex Tarris.
Yeah. Alex Tarris, Tarris, and I'll put this information, we'll send it out on email, and I'll also put it in the Facebook group. The other thing is I know you guys are doing something over New Year's. Do you want to talk about that? You're having an immersion here.
Yeah, so we're doing an immersion over New Year's, as I mentioned that shifting from 2019 into 2020 is a really, let's say, big deal. Energetically, for the planet, for our species, like it's pretty huge what we're stepping into. And yeah, we were just guided to put together an immersion in Asheville here. It's 4 days, and we're going to be doing a lot of you have access to all of our temple technologies for health and healing during that time, and then we're going to be doing a lot of workshops and practices that are about really developing our light body technology and really opening up our pillar of light to be vehicles for the embodiment of consciousness on the earth. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be here in Asheville. Do you want to add anything to that?
No.
We have a really amazing, you're just looking at the back of like a boring fireplace. This place that we have is really incredible. It's been really put together.
Look at what look at that room that Ahaumna's creating right there. Where she's making this into this like super magical temple space. It's really awesome. So I hope you guys will connect with them. They're just amazing, beautiful people. This is like High Priestess of Hathor right here for sure. And you are something else. Definitely. I get I feel like there's so much more that I would like. I feel like we should do more of these. Just like there's so many different dimensions that we can go into, but this is all the time we're going to have for today. I hope you guys have a really great weekend, and yeah, that's a wrap.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Bye, guys. Okay. Bye. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Bye, Kana. Bye, Robin. Bye, Nicole.